Hello, thank you for choosing StripSearch, an easy way to find apps requiring only those Android permissions you're comfortable with. Let's start with a simple search for an app, Minesweeper, for example. First, let's search without any filtering. As you might expect, all Minesweeper apps, regardless of the permissions required, appear as search results. You can determine the permissions required by an app by clicking on the StripSearch icon in the app listing. This one, for example, requires these permissions. Click on one of the listed permissions to read a brief summary of what that permission actually entails. Internet, for example, requires full network access. Now let's restrict the search substantially using the filter Paranoia Strikes Deep. So this filter basically excludes any apps requiring commonly used permissions. As you can see, only apps that require basically no permissions are now listed. If you're interested in seeing exactly which permissions are filtered during a search, simply long-click the filter selection box. If the selected filter relies on other existing filters, they will be displayed by default. Click on the expansion boxes to see which permissions are associated with each subfilter. As you can see, a filter can be comprised of a hierarchy of other filters. If you just want to see the permissions, select Permissions Only and the hierarchy will be ignored. Again, you can click on a particular permission if you want more information. For those filters without a hierarchy, only the permissions associated with that particular filter are displayed. Note that you're not limited to the default filter selection offered by StripSearch. You can create your own filters or modify existing filters as well. For example, let's search for a flashlight app. As you can see, most of the apps returned require all sorts of permissions to run, and some don't even actually use the phone's flashlight. Let's try again with the filter Paranoia Strikes Deep. This time the results are fairly limited, and none of the apps actually use the flashlight. Why? Because Paranoia Strikes Deep doesn't allow apps that require the flashlight. However, I can modify the filter to require flashlight usage. Unfortunately, as you can see, there's kind of a dearth of apps that actually meet this criterion. Let's now create a filter to exclude apps that require communication and location permissions. We just want a flashlight, after all. And being a flashlight, let's find apps that actually use the flashlight permission. Now the results are basically flashlights without the potential adware and spyware cruft of the unfiltered search listings. If this is a useful filter, perhaps you might like it listed higher in the filter selection. If that's the case, just move it to the position you'd like it to occupy as follows. If you want to remove other filters, you can do that too. Let's try and remove this hardware filter, for example. Unfortunately, it's currently used by another filter, namely Paranoia Strikes Deep. If I remove that filter first, then I can remove hardware as well. Now you can see that the flashlight filter is listed first, and the hardware and Paranoia Strikes Deep filters are now gone. At this point, you may have made some changes that you don't like. If you want to return to the default filter selection, just do so in the settings as follows. Now the flashlight filter is gone, hardware is restored, and Paranoia Strikes Deep is restored as well. And it's there with the default settings. While in the settings dialog, you may have noticed some other useful features. For example, let's change the color scheme. And let's also limit our search results to only free apps. You could also specify a Google account if you wanted results tailored by Google to your typical search patterns, for example, but that's a bit beyond the scope of this demo. By default, the App Store is searched anonymously. Now that we have our desired settings in place, let's search again for free Minesweeper apps that would work with this phone that are essentially just Minesweeper. If I actually click on one of the results, I'd typically be directed to the app's listing in Google Play, where I could then install it. But since this is an emulated phone, I don't have Google Play, and am instead directed to the app's generic URL. Anyway, that concludes this demo of the StripSearch basics. I hope you find StripSearch useful, and take a moment to look at other apps I've developed at hasslefixes.com. Thanks.